Okay. So what I'd like to do just before we start is I just kind of like to go around, ask everyone to unmute and just kind of introduce yourself, your business, and kind of one thing that that you're interested in. Brian, do you want to start?
Sure. My name is Brian Mako. I'm a CPA. I do tax accounting, focusing on companies between, well, they end up being between 100,000 and 12 million, but that's really the bulk of them is, I'd say around 200,000. So that's me. I'm based just north of Airdrie here on an acreage. And one fun thing about me is I like water skiing.
Oh, cool. Super. Thank you. Steve, do you want to go next?
Not really, but I have to. At a company called Stormwater Home Solutions. We cater to the building industry and other things like that with closets and window coverings, and just was told to watch this presentation because it might be something that can be of use as we try to get back a little bit of life and not so much work, and something I enjoy doing. Anything but work right now. Trying to be outdoors, out in the backwoods mostly.
Well, hopefully the Christmas break, you'll get to do a bunch of that.
Yeah, lots of snow happening on the mountains, so that should be good.
Awesome. One interesting thing about you.
Interesting thing about me?
Yeah.
I really don't know. Like,
What's your favorite outdoor thing?
outdoor thing? Well, skiing in the winter, fishing in the summer, camping, ATV, anywhere in the bush.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you. Evan, do you want to go next?
Love to. So Evan, work with business owners, helping them capture the wealth that they're sort of generating in this complex structure known as their business. My team and I were called Copper Creek Wealth Management, so we're obviously on the wealth management front, but always, coordinating with professionals like yourselves, CPAs, estate planners, things like that, to sort of coordinate that bear hug around the business owner. Fun thing about me, Brian, you and I are going to have a lot of conversations about water skiing, because that's my ultimate thing to do. Grew up in Ontario doing that all summer long. So yeah, plenty to talk about there.
Awesome.
I'll have to introduce you to a friend of mine. He moved from here to gated water ski community just south of Houston.
Oh my God.
So every house has a dock and a boat and is on a canal. They even have if you don't have someone to drive your boat, they've got a tow rope type of T-bar system where you can practice slalom even if you don't have your boat handy.
Wow. That's the dream.
Sounds like heaven to me.
So who's on iPhone? Who's that, Robert?
I think that's Curtis.
Okay.
That's me. I managed to get the speaker to work, but now I lost my video on a relog in. Sorry about that. But yeah, doing what I got to do to connect in. Well, I've got the speaker. Name's Curtis Buck. I've got a fractional CFO consulting company, Grey Wolf Advisory Services. My focus for me is slow pitch ball over the course of spring, summer, and most of the fall. Drag it out, including heading off to Florida in March. So trying to make it a year-round event. On that fractional CFO services, that speaks for itself. So what I'm looking for today, this is a preempt on that part 6. I had 2 clients I was hoping to have attend, and I know exactly where both of them are. And yeah, I made it on iPhone and they're not going to make it at all.
That's okay. We'll make the materials and the presentation will be recorded, so we'll make that available. Happy to share anything you like. And we're actually going to be running this every month.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll get them in here in due course. So appreciate it.
Excellent. Okay, who's next?
Michael.
Michael.
Oh, greetings. Sorry, I'm fighting a cold down here. I'm Mike Desiato. I'm a CPA, also a certified exit planning advisor, a CEPA, if you will, and also a CEXP, another certified exit planning designation. And my company is Business Transition Specialists. And I work with mid-sized business owners, trying to help them navigate probably one of the most significant financial events of their lives, that being the successful exit from their companies on their terms and for the amount of money they need in order to retire. And I think I heard people talking about a fun fact about them. My fun fact is that I just started taking up golf, so I am constantly frustrated, but I'm learning. It's a challenging game, and I look forward to playing every week.
Excellent. Thank you. And then Marie. If you can unmute yourself, Marie.
Sorry, my apologies. Hi, I'm so sorry. I'm Marie Molino. I'm the Strategic Partnership Manager at PO Canada, and we work with businesses that are looking to expand operations in Canada and provide support with payroll, HR, benefits, and workers' compensation administration.
Super.
Great to be here.
Thanks. So that gives me a feel for who's in the room. So the way we're going to go today is I'm going to go through basically a presentation, a framework around Agile business growth transformation. And it's really kind of a methodology and a process around how a business owner can look at building strategies and executing on growing their business, whether it's for an exit or whether it's just to be able to scale up their business. Either way, what we're really talking about here is growing value in the business and building that. In terms of land acknowledgement, I'm not going to go through the naming names. I think it's a little token. I just want to recognize the privilege and the generosity of First Nations in sharing these lands with us. And let's get into the presentation. So really, when we deal with businesses, for the last 14 years, I've been doing growth transformation work. And typically what I find is it is companies that have grown, they're successful, they've grown to a certain point, and then they find that they plateau. And consistently, the reason for this is pretty much always the same. It is really, they've reached the limitation of the effectiveness and the skills and abilities of the leadership team. If you want to grow and scale a company, it takes a team. And when you kind of peak out, basically, it's the team that needs to be supported and developed. It's the team in terms of their effectiveness that needs to be grown. And it's being able to build a team that can build leaders and build other teams below them that truly transforms a company and makes them scalable. And there's a very disciplined process around doing this. So one of the biggest challenges I've found, though, is basically finding the right trigger that really kind of incents and drives a business owner to actually take action and do something. So what I find is that there's usually something happens in the business, because what at least in my experience, what I see a lot is business owners, the company's doing okay. And a lot of times, okay is good enough. And so the business will stay that way, and it can stay that way for a long time. But then something happens in the business. And one of the reasons that Robert and I have focused on exit planning is you can coast along quite fine, but then you get to a certain point where you start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and you want to transition out of your business. Well, if you want to transition out of your business and be successful, then that is typically a trigger where they recognize if they want to cash out, they're going to have to make some changes in their business. So other triggers that we see quite often is new management, bringing in new talent on the team creates an opportunity in a situation for transformation. Getting new investors, getting new ownership. Quite often, people then have a desire to redefine the next phase of the company's growth. Engaging employees if you find that you want to re-engage, and again, creating a vision and creating a stimulus to get people to kind of step up and re-engage is, you know, the types of opportunities that can really trigger stepping up and taking action to make this happen. And in order to really grow and scale a company, you actually have to transform. You have to make some significant changes in the company. And those changes will create growth, and that growth in itself will create even more changes. So I took a certification out of a program, kind of a subset out of Harvard, called Agile Corporate Transformation. And it's a framework that was developed to help Fortune 100s, like huge organizations, to be able to transform. And the biggest challenge I found was actually taking that kind of big scope framework and tool set and make it relevant to small organizations. So the same kind of principles apply to small, medium-sized companies, only they have to be simplified further. And one of the fundamental pieces in this whole framework was that true transformation, small or big companies, it requires simplicity. Quite often, one of the reasons we get stuck is we get kind of immersed in the complexity of our businesses. And when we get stuck in that complexity, it really inhibits our ability to grow. And so, you know, one of the big keys in this is being able to find that simplicity beyond the complexity. Because when you can find that simplicity, then that's where you can actually engage everyone in the organization to be able to get involved and take some ownership in driving the change that's needed to scale and grow the business. So, you know, another way to look at it is there's really kind of things that matter, because quite often when we're wallowing in the complexity in our businesses, we're chasing 100 balls, and it becomes unwieldy and unmanageable. So getting it down to this simplicity, focusing on a lot fewer things, looking really at the things that really matter and the things that we can control. So this idea of focusing and getting down to a few things and doing a lot more on a lot less. Because a lot of times companies talk about doing more with less, which is kind of a fool's game. You can't do more with less. I worked with Ernst & Young, and our philosophy with leadership teams is you've got to learn to do, you're going to do less with less. It's do the things that matter. So putting more effort into less things drives transformation. Because we can grow companies, but actually the data and the research shows that not all growth is transformational. Quite often what we see is when the owner of a business, or, you know, some of the leadership team get really excited about growing the company, taking it to the next level, there's kind of a push and pull model around this. When it's just senior leadership led and they're kind of the drivers for all of this, then what we quite often see is you'll see some initial growth, you'll see things kind of pick up and start to take off. But what happens is the level of engagement with the rest of the organization really truly isn't there, and it's not there in a sustainable way. And we see companies quite often going through a growth spurt and then everything kind of goes back to the way it was. And the idea of transformational growth, at least the stuff that scales and works, is basically you've got to engage the whole organization. Transformational growth is when we get the understanding of and the disciplines of growth transformation cascaded throughout the entire organization. You know, it's almost like safety or like continuous improvement. It's when we get everyone in the organization thinking with that mindset and understanding what it is and taking individual action around supporting it. That's when we see truly transformational growth. So one of our frameworks to develop simplicity beyond complexity is the business growth transformation program, the framework that we've developed. And you can put your own tools into this, but the framework, I think, is what really makes it, again, doable, is really three things: know, to grow, to transform. Knowing is really about strategy. It's knowing, it's having a vision. Like everything starts with the end in mind. What is it ultimately you want to accomplish? What's the potential you see in your business? What really defines success in your business? So developing that vision and then building the strategy, executing on the strategy, which is where we really generate results, and then figuring out what truly works, and then making those new habits and behaviors and processes and disciplines the normal mode of operation in our company is truly what transforms it. So we look at this process: know, to grow, to transform. It's basically then what you do is you need to put in the components that allow you to do those things. So around strategy, putting into place a process for strategic planning. For us, we call it an Agile growth transformation process. And I'll get into what that is and what that looks like a little bit later. But it is taking on and making it a disciplined process of defining vision, understanding all of the different aspects of different components of strategy, and making sure that you've considered and done your strategic thinking around each one of these, and then figure out what are the few things that truly will drive and grow the business. So under strategy, we've got, at least within our toolbox, we've got a whole bunch of different tools that senior leadership teams can basically take and work on and develop to be able to provide the inputs they need to develop and define their transformation strategies. When we look at growth, strategy execution is, again, really kind of a process and a discipline unto itself. So the Agile growth transformation process is really a strategy execution process, because you got to develop, the first part of strategy execution is develop the strategy, but then putting in place the processes and disciplines. So the strategy is broken down to achievable, committed actions and deliverables, and then those get cascaded through the organization, is really kind of at the heart of that. So again, we look at processes, systems, tools, frameworks around doing those. And then again, like I said, for transforming the culture, it's really making sure that things that work, behaviors that work, and strategies that work become the normal course of business, and bringing in, using data-driven decision making, using KPIs and dashboards and tools like that, that really allow us to start to evaluate and figure out what works, and then to be able to maintain and support those new disciplines. So we break these know, grow, transform into their own kind of processes and methodologies around each one of those. So I'm going to go through each one of those and how you can take an approach delivering on each function. So when we talk about strategy, fundamentally, one of the challenges I found in building strategies is when you just kind of brainstorm and work with leadership teams, it can become just a confused mess. It again tends to create complexity. And I found that breaking strategy down to what are the three areas that really create value in a business. And we've developed this very simplified framework. And in our work with business leadership teams, we found that making this into simply 3 things really drive the success of your business. Your ability to go out and get business, to bring customers and work in the door, your ability to deliver for those customers with excellence, in a way, creating that customer love where they need what you have, and you're able to deliver it in a way that meets or ideally exceeds their expectations. And then the third is really supporting the business. Do we have the process, systems, tools, all of the support mechanisms within the business so that it is able to function and operate efficiently, effectively, and profitably? So really, when we talk with leadership teams, it becomes simple when you look at it from a simplistic perspective. What's working, what's not? A lot of engineering firms I work with, or a lot of professional service companies we work with, you know what they're great at? They're great at delivering for the customer. Engineers are great at doing projects. They're good at building systems and processes. They see the value in structure and disciplines, and that creates scalability. So they get that. Their biggest challenge, at least in the engineering world where I've managed companies and we have a lot of clients, is their ability to go out and get customers. So if you want to scale and grow, guess where you really need to focus? So when they look at their businesses simply from this perspective, it becomes a lot simpler to get down to what are the few things we have to focus and put all of our effort into. Not the many, the few. And this framework really kind of helps us look at it from that perspective. And again, this is based on research. These are the types of initiatives that really grow value within a business. So under our ability to get, which is really kind of business development, marketing, sales, increasing market share is really about building disciplined marketing and sales processes and tools that can be scalable. Mergers and acquisitions, the fastest way to grow is to go out and buy other companies. That can scale you incredibly well. One of my clients, they started off with 5 equipment dealerships. Over a period of about 10 years, they bought another 85 equipment dealerships. And when they sold it, they had created a $2 billion organization. So M&A is something that if you truly want to scale your business, is a highly effective tool. Creating opportunities for recurring revenue. Again, we have a lot of areas where we do new builds and projects. Well, maintenance and ongoing operational support can create recurring revenue that can really balance those things out. New products, new markets, innovation, new intellectual property, new ways of doing things, new ways of delivering services, new ways of billing for services. And then creating a real sales discipline are the biggest value growth opportunities in any business. For delivery, driving operational excellence, getting it so that we can deliver even better on our products and services, increasing quality, speed, efficiency, reducing costs, increasing customer loyalty. Like I said, when we can generate that real customer love for our products and services, that loyalty is the foundation of rapid and significant growth. And then around support, really it's organizational design, restructuring, being able to scale and grow leadership throughout the organization. Because if you want to scale, then the key to scaling is you've got to build the leaders underneath you. So everyone's focused on how they create the most value in the organization. And you don't just focus on developing the person under you, you need to develop their ability to develop the person under them. Because when you develop that kind of self-reinforcing, self-replicating process within your business, you're building an organization that truly can scale itself. And that is kind of where we can see that transformation to the company being able to grow and thrive, almost regardless of who the ownership is. So putting in best practices, KPIs, measurement systems, kind of the digital transformation using technology. These are ways to significantly create value. And then the last one we've got in here, which is becoming, I think, a major, much more significant factor, is ESG, creating a conscious approach to sustainability within our businesses. This is really attracting a lot of attention these days, and it's attracting a lot of attention because it does create value. It attracts better customers, it attracts money, it attracts better talent, and it attracts a social license to grow. So when we look at strategic planning strategy, developing strategies around ESG, developing the vision, target markets. There's things called value creation strategies. How do we create value for our customer? Are there opportunities? Doing things like pulse of the customer research to better understand how their needs are changing and evolving. Competitive analysis, always working on developing our differentiating messaging and understanding how we can stand out from the noise. All of these are aspects where there's a need to do the kind of thinking, the deeper thinking, the strategic thinking, and then deciding which of these many opportunities are going to be the few that really are going to make the difference, considering the reality of our industry, our sector, our strengths and weaknesses, all of those things. As I mentioned, ESG is really something we're seeing it's a societal change. McKinsey actually had an article about 2 months ago. There's a lot of debate around ESG, but the bottom line is they kind of debunked all of the pushback on ESG. And their point was, you can argue it, but fundamentally they see this as a societal change. So if you really want to thrive in the future, you need to kind of embrace this thinking, because this is where society is moving its values around the sustainability. So it's not a flash in the pan. It's a flash in the pan, kind of like the internet was 30 years ago. So then let's get into strategy execution. So the 3 pillars around strategy execution are really about people, process, and skills. So when we talk about people, it's really about making sure that you've got, not just with leadership, it starts with leadership, but all throughout your company, you need to make sure you've got the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and the right people in the right seats. Maria, I think you probably preach this a lot. And so, being able to empower the leadership team so they can develop kind of a top grading talent attraction and development type of strategies and approach. Disciplines around performance management, organizational design, talent mapping, looking at your organization as a whole and seeing where you're strong, where you're weak, where there's holes. Role mapping, figure out what are the right seats and what are the right roles and responsibilities, building on each person's strengths and the needs within the business. And then developing that downline, developing that next level of leadership. Robert's background's in the military, and you see how he talks about this is something the military has taught for literally centuries. Every leader has to build their 2IC, their second command, and then you have to mentor them so they're building their 2IC. And when you're always building 2 levels down and training down, then you're always building that capacity that makes the organization truly resilient and scalable. So this people thing, and I found, again, as I mentioned right at the start, the key to transformation is always about people. It's the people that truly are the business. So it always starts there. And if you haven't got this fixed, then you're never going to be able to execute on the strategies. In terms of process, it really is starting to put in disciplines. Again, we can be lucky and do a lot of the right things and get the business successful to a certain degree. But if we truly want to scale and take it to that next level, then it becomes an exercise in disciplines and doing the right things that create results consciously. So things like 90-day strategic planning sprints, weekly scrums, performance management check-ins on a weekly basis, developing processes around team problem solving, decision making, change management, developing KPIs, measurables, dashboards, building and training people on what a culture of accountability is, putting in disciplines like above the line, those types of things that are the disciplines and the processes that really allow you to kind of cascade and create capabilities throughout the organization. So we talk about this agile growth transformation process. I kind of mentioned it at the top. It's something that kind of starts with an initial project, but becomes a new normal discipline as we iterate and go through. So this agile growth transformation process is really, if you want to actually drive transformation in your business, you need to start, and the idea is, we call it launch speed, simplicity times compression. So it's almost like a go big or go home type of approach. If you're truly going to drive change in your organization, then you need to confront reality. Where are we at? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What's the market? Where are the opportunities? How competitive is it? It's really, truly, deeply understanding the reality of where your business is at and where you want to take it. Then it's with that understanding. So then starting to build towards that simplicity. So understanding all of that, then where do we focus? What are the few things that really are going to drive and make a difference? And when we define that, we have to make sure that everyone who's responsible for delivering on those priorities and those strategies is involved in the process. So this is where we have to start to align and engage everyone. Everyone who's involved needs to be involved in the process itself, not just told what to do, but actually have a hand in defining how we get there and what is the strategy. So that align and engage is where we start at the top, but then basically we have to bring the rest of the organization along and cascade out to the rest of the organization where we're going, the vision, their role in it, and get them actively involved in defining how they can play a key role in delivering on this. So that's this launch phase. So it's really kind of training and modeling and showing everyone where we're going to go, how we're going to get there, and getting them started and having a role in doing so. After that, every 90 days, we basically go through this very disciplined process. What are things that we can get accomplished in 90 days? The world changes so quickly today. 90 days is typically as far as we can see forward. So defining those committed outcomes, having people commit to their own action items, having weekly check-ins to see how we're progressing, who needs help, because we're a team, and the strength of a team is we're there to support each other and make each other successful. And we need to build that discipline and that culture around doing that. So identifying challenges as soon as they come up, where people need help, where things are working or not working. And then along that process, if we want people to succeed, then we need to also see where maybe they're lacking in skills or experience or guidance, and supporting and propping them up. And then the KPIs and accountability process, again, is a key part of our success, but it's accountability. having numbers gives us real measures and indicators of how we're performing and progressing. And an accountability culture is really being there to support each other, to celebrate our successes, to learn and support what needs to be done to make it successful when we recognize that we're not achieving what we'd hoped for. So when we talk about skills development in terms of the strategy execution process, depending on kind of what we're seeing within the organization, it really is around leadership behaviors and starting to train people on what those look like. And when I talk about training people, I mean training everyone in the organization. We need to build everyone. And when we build everyone using the same kind of tools and skills development resources, then we start to create a shared language, shared understanding, shared values. And this is really, the glue that starts to create a tribe and a sense of belonging and commitment into the organization. So the skills development is probably one of the most powerful tools we see these days. There's a saying that you want to train people so that they're skilled enough they can go anywhere, and then treat them well enough that the only place they want to go is where you've kind of grown them and developed them. So, and the other thing I find is that with younger generations, you grow them or you lose them. They are so hungry to learn and develop their people skills and leadership skills that it's really invaluable strategy in terms of retaining great talent. So the last piece, this transformation of culture. Culture, one of the things that I find is a lot of business people think culture is a nebulous, kind of vague, amorphous thing. And in fact, I find culture is quite simple in practice. Culture is simply the behaviors that we tolerate. What are the behaviors we want? What are the behaviors we tolerate? And we create kind of a road that we go down as an organization based on those behaviors, and promoting the ones that make us successful and not tolerating the ones that make us fail is really how we manage culture. So it really is managing behaviors. And we've developed we've developed again, a simplistic methodology around to be able to drive this transformational cultural change. It requires what we call 3 M's. We need to mandate, market, and maintain. And that simple process is kind of how we overcome the inhibitors. There's some natural obstacles we find in every organization that make it really, really difficult for us to be able to grow and transform. Recognizing those, understanding the things that we can do to overcome those. And then, as we've looked and found the best practices around understanding and managing this, we simplify it down to mandate, market, maintain. So in other words, everyone has to be committed to the transformations. Everyone has to be committed to the changes that we say are strategic priorities. So creating mandatory participation with safe passage. So here's where we're going. Here's the vision. Here's what we got to do. We're all going on this journey together. And helping people understand that they've got to come along and they've got to be committed to it. And the way we do that is we have to make it safe. So we understand that we're all going to fail at some point. And failure is not the end of the process. It's invaluable because it's how we're going to learn and keep learning to the point where we figured out what's going to make us successful, and we'll keep growing and developing beyond that. So having a mandate, marketing it. So going out to everyone in the organization and helping them understand the 3 marketing questions. Why should they care? What's in it for them? Why should they believe you? And you have to communicate that and keep communicating that continuously from the top to the bottom of the organization. Everyone has to understand, why should they care? What's in it for them? Why should they believe you? And then the last part is we have to maintain. When we're driving major changes, this transformation, we have to put in place all of the training and support and systems and process and measures and rewards and consequences, and create champions and empower people. All of those things have to be in place. So if we do all three of those things, mandate, market, maintain, and I think for most of us, if you think back to some of the change initiatives you've seen or participated in, think about whether you've done all three of those things. Have we done everything around the mandate and held everyone accountable to be committed to it? Have we sold it to everybody before we've expected them to be committed to it? And have we put everything in place for them to be successful? And I think you can think back to change initiatives of your own and think, were those things in place? And if they weren't, what was our outcome? How successful were we? So in terms of transforming culture, really having a process, having a discipline, leading with our purpose, with our why. Simon Sinek talks about people don't care what or how if they don't understand the why. And so having that higher purpose that people can relate to. Living the core values, the way we manage and govern effective behaviors is our core values. So almost every company I work with, when we do the vision validation, one of the most powerful things is truly coming up with core values that define and are not negotiable around behaviors. And also training the leadership team on how to use those core values every day in discussions, meetings, performance management, all of the process where those core values can be your most powerful tool for driving the right behaviors. And then using data, creating a data-driven culture of accountability. And continuous learning and peer mentoring. We're always growing and creating a culture within the organization of continuous learning and growth, again, is what creates truly powerful outcomes. And there's this Shook's version. So one of the things is to drive change, you used to think we need to change thinking and we'll change behaviors. And the Shook model is really, we need to change, we can't control thinking, but we can control behaviors. Core values say what's acceptable and what unacceptable behaviors. So, and when we change behaviors, we can change thinking, because changing behaviors changes outcomes, and those outcomes will change people's thinking. So it's kind of this iterative process around change, which I feel is much more empowering, because it is something, remember, what things make a difference and what things you can control. This is an approach to culture that you can control. So we have a workbook around this that we work through with our clients. So if you'd like to discuss that further, we'd love to kind of share and talk with you about it. So at this point, what I'm going to do is that's basically the framework around transformational growth. What I'd like to do is kind of open up everyone's mics and let's have a conversation. What do you think are the opportunities? What do you see within this framework that you like or that you think is kind of confusing? Robert?
You can't ask me because I'm selling the stew that I made.
I was actually going to ask, was there anything posted in the chat or anything that has come up?
Nope, nothing in the chat. People were intently listening to what you were saying the whole time.
So
I'll put my hand up.
Yep.
Thanks for the invite, Brad, and the information. I really found the last part extremely valuable, especially in our business. Right now, the biggest barrier to change is change. And building that culture of change is extremely difficult. I am going to be ruminating on those last two slides a lot. Especially when you're thinking about why should I care? What's in it for me? And why should I believe you? I've always done the first two, but I've never done the last one, is why should I believe you? And I like to throw that out there, is why should you believe leadership? Why, if I'm presenting our platform to people, why should they believe me? I'm just a sales guy.
Yeah.
So what causes people to believe you? And that's the question I would have.
Okay. In my experience, proven success.
Mm.
So if somebody else has done the same thing or that had this implemented the same changes we're talking about, and there's proven successes, that's a reason to believe. Bringing in expertise, bringing in subject matter experts who've got experience. Other reasons to believe are basically rewards and consequences are also reasons to believe. If you're really serious about it, you put your money where your mouth is.
All right. And I guess that's how you would get over so if you're cutting edge, you probably have to put the money where the mouth is.
Yeah. So
Well-
it's putting in those guarantees, those commitments, creating consequences for yourself. If we don't succeed in this, how is that going to impact us? So there's kind of a co-destiny thing here.
The other thing too, it's actually actions speak louder than words too, Steve. If the management team is fully committed to it and they're showing that they're fully committed to it by their words and their actions, there's a good reason to believe.
Oh, one more thing I just thought of. Huge, one of the most powerful things around getting them to believe you, transparency.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to tell them when it's not working, right?
Mm-hmm.
And don't be afraid to tell them you don't know, and engage them in helping you figure out what the right solution is.
I have a ball I'll just toss up for discussion. What, Brad, in your experience, has been the most effective way for you to help an owner get management on board? I think a lot of the times where yeah, you mentioned it, I think at the top of the discussion, which is when it's owner driven, you get a push and pull situation where there's a little bit of a spurt and then you come back down to norm. How do you get, maybe pertains to that culture shift? Um, what's the biggest trigger you found has been helpful for the owner to get most of the team on board to say, okay, we're all in this together. There's a buy-in there from management. What's been an effective way to do that?
Well, this is going to sound really self-serving, but what I found is invaluable is bringing in an outside party, because one of the challenges I've seen is when the CEO is driving the change, the CEO is the captain of the hockey team. The CEO is on the ice skating. So if the team doesn't have a coach, it's really hard for everyone to kind of feel like they've got an equal say in the strategy and how the team's functioning and stuff. So I find that the most powerful way to get everyone engaged is allow the CEO to be one of the team members and to bring an outside party. The most important thing is, if you really want to engage, is you've got to get them to create the new vision. If the vision is dictated, it's dead. They've got the extended leadership team has got to be involved in defining what that vision is.
It's the what's in it for me, Evan.
Yeah. No involvement,
Yep.
no commitment.
I think that's a great takeaway, and just even thinking about my business with the associates that we have is allowing them to contribute and bring ideas and to say, okay, something's not working. How would you change this? How do you see the business unfolding? What direction do you think we should be going into? And yeah, that challenge of equality is a little bit difficult because as the owner, there is that you're the owner, you're right, but as best as you can create a sense of equality in that we're all in this together. Your opinion is just as important. I value it, and we can all grow together. Yeah, so I think that's a great point.
Well, think about the team. When the coach calls a huddle, calls you the sidelines, by having a coach, the team captain doesn't necessarily overpower the discussion. The team coach allows everyone to feel like they have, you know, a meaningful voice in developing the play. So it does make a big difference when you do have a third party, because then you know, a third party can kind of play a neutral, no dog in the fight type of role, that can actually empower the senior leadership team to still be influential, but it truly brings out that engagement. It truly brings out people to feel like, okay, my voice does count, because this other person is making sure that it's getting heard and validated.
I think a useful catalyst for that is getting them involved in the vision discussion, right? And then getting everyone to agree on the values that, you know, these are the core principles of the company. It's not just we are what we are because I say so. It's an organic, you know, it's an organism, a business, right? It's live. And so so it needs that input, I think. Yeah, great point.
Well, and if they create it, they're committed to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I'm seeing that, like, in my business, in our success with our customers, is that when you have a leader that can define the end goal
Mhm.
and allow teams to get there kind of how by themselves. So like one guy might want to go through the kitchen to get to the office. The other guy might want to go around the other way. But if you give people just enough autonomy, and so they don't need to be following a strict guideline.
Mhm.
I'm seeing that that's been really useful for change.
Absolutely.
I think that's a Daniel Pink. I'm forgetting them now, but autonomy, mastery, and there's one other, but the
Purpose.
core
Purpose.
purpose. Thank you. Yes, tenets to motivation and drive. Yeah,
Daniel Pink, you said?
Yeah.
Daniel Pink. Yeah.
He's got a great video. It's about a 15-minute video RSA animates, and it's fantastic. He kind of goes through all the research he's done, and autonomy, mastery, and purpose are the true drivers of motivation. Once you get it's not money. Money's only when you don't have enough of it or you don't feel it's fair and equitable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fantastic read for anybody curious. Suggest it.
Anybody else? Thoughts, feedback? What in your own organization or the work that you do with clients, what are you seeing?
Curtis here.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's Curtis here. I guess my broad takeaway is, even in this latter discussion, is the broadening of the definition of the team. The key point that I picked up was the owner has his 2IC and the 2IC has a 2IC, and that nature extends the sheer size of the team. And all the other points that you guys have been mentioning is the inclusion, the build, it's their vision.
Mhm.
That I take away is I see the linkage of the involvement, and I've always had that 2IC. I've never thought of it as, I've seen it in action, but I'd never noticed it as the same principle of layering down that same concept. So thank you.
Yeah, actually that developing below you, like there's you know, these popular sayings, you know, leaders create other leaders. But when we see that in practice, you know, let me give you an example, small business. So client has got kind of specialty products manufacturing business, small, growing. And the challenge is they're over their eyeballs in stuff they got to do, and they want to grow. So how do they grow when they're just, they don't have enough hours in the day? And it's basically, it starts with building that next person. And simply what they've got to do is start offloading everything that somebody else could do, so they can only focus on the stuff that only they can do. And then developing that person, as that they offload, they can start growing the business. And now as they grow the business, once they get that person filled up, then that person, they mentor that person to develop the person under them so they can start to offload. So suddenly it's not that you need 5 levels down, but you start cascading this approach and the strategy and the stuff we do at the leadership level. We train the next level to do the same processes and the same skills. And then we train them to train the person under them to do the same process and skills. And then as we start to cascade that over time, everyone's building the same habits, same behaviors, same values. We're starting to make ourselves self-replicating. And it just starts with that, how do I grow the person under me? And then they take on the tasks that I can start to offload. I mean, great organizations, senior leadership only does a very few things. They've got everyone else fully owning. I know I've transformed an organization when a CEO comes to me and goes, I don't know what to do anymore. I need to do job description. Everything's being taken care of because that's perfect. Now you've got a company A that if a buyer came along, wanted to buy it tomorrow, it's absolutely strategically attractive to anybody because it can grow regardless. It's low risk, etc. But B, it's a company where, you know, that CEO, those founders can go do what they do best, which is be entrepreneurs.
And just something to add to that quickly, in terms of regarding growth of a business in general, it's important that all businesses have a good infrastructure. And when I mean by a good infrastructure, I mean they need to have the mechanics of the business, strong so that they can, that the leaders can focus on growing the business and not spending time figuring out how to push paper around or administrative. That's where PO Canada comes in, and we do for a lot of our clients, the outsourcing of employee management needs, as such as payroll, HR, benefits, and workers' comp. Outsourcing that, it's a lot more economical, it's a lot more financially viable. We provide a dedicated team, we have experts in the field, we hold their hand every step of the way. We're a one-stop shop under one roof, very comprehensive service. So by allowing this outsourcing to happen, number one, not only is it more cost effective, but it allows the leaders to focus on growing their business versus how to administer the business or how to figure out all the other paperwork that goes with it, and ensure you're being compliant with Canadian labor laws and legislation, and making sure that the CRA is happy. Right, that all your government burdens have been remitted and all that stuff. So that's where we come on board. We work with a lot of companies that are looking to acquire businesses, or they're merging with existing businesses and need our support and services on how that works. So we help with before, during, and after. So it's something to consider as well. It may be a small piece, but it's also a very important piece.
Which kind of lends back to our value strategy around grow the business, get business, deliver, and support. Creating excellence in all 3 of those areas grows your business, grows value. Okay, anyone else?
No, I would just add that on top of that, it's more important than just a small component. Operations and the structures internally is absolutely crucial, and understanding everything is lubricated. It's a big component of decentralizing that owner from the ins and outs and the weeds in the day to day. Because if there's that structure and you could replace person A with person B, because God forbid person A, something happens or they leave or whatever, there's a structure, there's policy, there's documents. You can put in somebody brand new and they know exactly what to do. So kudos. I think that's an important part.
Excellent. Thanks, Evan. If anybody else has any comments or anything they want to contribute, otherwise we're going to kind of close off here. We hit our 1 o'clock time. Robert, anything else you want to add?
No, just like to thank everybody for joining us today, and I hope you got some value out of this.
I'd like to thank you for putting it on. I learned a lot.
Keep them coming.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here?
Basically, we've got a couple of other sessions. So every month now, we're running this growth transformation workshop. So you're welcome to share it with business owners, other business advisors, anybody who'd kind of like to understand the framework. Basically, our framework is kind of similar to what you get from EOS or Scaling Up or other systems, only it's I'd say it's a little broader, and maybe a little more comprehensive, particularly around the aspect of how critical it is to develop skills. Because if you don't tool people up, you're not going to grow. You're not setting them up for success.
Yeah, and just to follow up to that, we also have another session that we do every month on exit planning 101. So helping business owners understand the major things they need to have to consider and actually start to action on if they want to sell their business or transition their business.
Yeah.
And that particular session, we have a workbook that we send along with it so the business owner can then start working on that.
Okay.
And then we also have 2 other peer meetings. We have a face-to-face exit advisor network meeting. So anybody who's a trusted advisor for the business owner, so lawyers, accountants, personal financial planners, M&A people, anybody who has kind of a role before, during, or after the transition of a business. Our goal is to kind of pull together so that we can kind of cross-pollinate and provide a team of support of subject matter experts for business owners, because it's really a team sport to be able to get them through to a great exit. And so we're doing that. Grow your professional services business using exit planning. First Tuesday of each month is in person, and the second Tuesday of each month is actually a virtual one.
For anyone here who has business owners as clients or prospective clients, where they might want to increase the exposure of what you guys do, I know this is being recorded. Would the recording be available to distribute to anybody who wasn't able to make the session, who did have interest and couldn't make their schedule line up?
Yeah, we'll put it on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel, so we'll make it available and we'll send you out the link.
Perfect. Brad, Rob, thank you so much.
Good seeing you again, Evan. Thanks for coming, everybody. Have a great weekend. And
Thank
if we
you.
don't see you
Bye now.
before Christmas, have a happy holiday season.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Excellent.
Thank you. Likewise.
Bye, everybody.
I think he's the